I mean, it was also, it was a bit of a weakness point, Achilles heel, because obviously I had no experience really working on sets, but at the same time, I think my approach to storytelling definitely was different than maybe other directors. And I don't know if that's necessarily a positive thing, but it's, I tried to use it as positive.
All right. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I want to start off right with the questions. The use of foreshadowing in this film is something that really stood out to me and was so powerful from beginning to end. So I'm wondering, for you as a director, without giving too much away, in your opinion, what was the most important or impactful foreshadowing for this film?
Ah, foreshadowing. Um, Maybe the red hoodie. I'm trying to be very vague here, you guys. This is a very
Fair.
big question. We're on dangerous ground. Yeah, that, and I think a lot of I like it where it's when she on her journey and she's meeting different characters and they all kind of somehow like there's some characters she meets and they sort of see things in her or they almost like they recognize her and stuff like that and that was very fun to play with as well.
Definitely.
What
I feel like that's such a creative piece to have, especially with the way that this film goes.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's a lot of it's a lot of it's a fine line to balance. Like, you don't want to give everything away, but you don't want to be really confusing either to your audience. You don't want to alienate them. So it was a lot of it was also playing with that in the edit to make sure that hopefully keep people's attention despite its obscure nature.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it worked very well. I wanted to chat a bit about your own personal photography because I was actually looking at your website and I was looking through some of your different pieces of work. And the specific one, Monster Inside, caught my eye. And I was looking at all those photographs and I saw some correlations in my mind to make to the film with like the contacts and the eyes, the red. Of course, in this film, we see different color than that. There's lots of sparkles, lots of color. So I thought that was really cool to see. So I know you worked with David Bird as your DP on this film. So I'd love to talk a bit about your creativity, how you both brought your own creativeness to this, and how you established what you wanted these immersive visuals and cinematography for the film to look like.
I mean, David, he was really keen to come on. He came out like a few weeks before we started filming, so I had a lot of time to hang out in Vancouver. And we just kind of like hung out watching movies. Like obviously we're working on pre-production during the day, but like at nighttime we watched a lot of movies together. We did a lot of talking. I would show him I had books on my work, so I just show him my photo books of my work so you can kind of get a feel for it. Just kind of spent a lot of time even like, location scouting, driving around. So we had all this kind of great downtime together, which I think just helped give him a sense of my world. So it wasn't like every scene where we like nitpicked over what the lighting's going to be exactly. It was just more like, once he understood, and especially after the first week, he was in his element of like what the film would look like, what he wanted to do and whatnot. So and how it was working in terms of what I wanted. So it was pretty intuitive. Well, intuitive. It was pretty kind of smooth sailing from then in because the film had sort of developed its look and we had kind of developed outside, indoors, what happens in places like this, what happens in places like this when there's sunlight, when it's nighttime, when it's daytime indoors, and then that was kind of became our sort of formulas for the rest of all of the shots.
That's really interesting. I was watching another interview you did during South by Southwest last year, and you were speaking about David too, and you talked about how you kept using the word fantasy, but David more responded to the word surreal. So I think that's really interesting to see
Communication, yeah.
how
Well,
artists communicate differently through words.
yeah, I mean that's a very good point. Is like because I mean he had obviously I made a lot of mood boards. I have a photographic world too, which is quite large. So it's a lot of references to look at. So that's it's not about me describing stuff and like getting mood boards from other people's work to try to give them an idea. It's like here's my world. How do you make this into cinema? Basically, obviously the lighting will be a bit different. It's not the same as with photography, but and I always said fantasy because I guess, but in my mind because my photos I shoot a lot of self-portraits. It's like it's a fantasy world that I create, and it's not fantasy in like a sexy way or like a Dungeons and Dragons way, but like in a completely imaginary realm. So so I think that was throwing him off because like fantasy kind of meant nothing for him. And then he made the leap. He made this sort of analogy. He's like, oh, I think what she means is surreal. So he went and found that word for himself. And then once he started using the words substituting surreal for fantasy, it became much easier for him to understand what I was meaning. And I just started using surreal too, just to kind of help him. So
That's interesting.
I want to add on to that point, obviously, with your background in photography, does it assist you as when you're in the director's chair? And do you think you see things that other directors might not consider having that background knowledge?
um I don't know. Me, I think it definitely is does give me it does change my perspective than 100%, of course, than somebody who's maybe like, gone up and worked in cinema for many years or their whole life or whatever from different departments or as director assistants or whatever. So, I mean, it was also, it was a bit of a weakness point, Achilles heel, because obviously I had no experience really working on sets, but at the same time, I think my approach to storytelling definitely was different than maybe other directors. And I don't know if that's necessarily a positive thing, but it's, I tried to use it as positive, whatever was happening, so I definitely don't, I don't think like I don't think in terms of perhaps a filmmaker, not yet anyway. It's much more difficult for me. I think a lot more in images, which is can be a weakness as well. But at the same time, it's a visually beautiful film. But of course, film is nothing without story. So, I had to make sure I had to spend extra time like concentrating on telling the story and making sure I get all my beats covered and these arcs and these little stories within stories so that that I wasn't just kind of going nowhere with this film. So
Yeah, it's such a fine line between like visual storytelling and actual storytelling, but I think you did a great job with this film.
well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I also wanted to chat a bit about the special effects in this film because obviously they're so distinctive in helping us determine what is reality and what is kind of this other maybe realm with the Suka. And so I wanted to ask how you worked with the special effects team to create what this monster would look like and all that kind of goop and gore that we see throughout the film.
I mean, we worked with a really great special effects guy, Emerson Ziffel. Him and his team came in and they were like really phenomenal. And I wanted to do m most of the effects in camera or as much as possible, basically all of it if we could. And so it was just like actually it was really fun because they would come and they would like come with like a blackboard and then they'd be like this black piece of cardboard and they'd be like, here's like liquidy mucus and they'd be like, I'm like, okay, good. And it's like, here's really sticky mucus. And they'd be like, and here's like really thick visc, I was like, oh, that's interesting too. And like this mucus is more clear. So it was just like a big board of jizz basically that they showed me. But so it was a lot of fun like that. They were just and the creature they designed it and they showed it to me like 3 days before we started shooting. So it was quite a surprise, but a good surprise. I was always wondering, I was a little bit on edge, wondering what it was going to be like. And then like lots of the mucus and kind of strange, surreal sort of like psychological gore scenes. I mean, they just had like I think they just brought on all this stuff. They're like, hey, what's all the weirdest shit we can have? We'll just bring it on set and it's covered all in mucus, and and then and David and his team set up like kind of red and green lights, which are the colors of for me for my film of cryptic. So it was just it was a lot of fun actually. It was a lot of laughs, a lot of like, just playing around. A lot of it was just kind of what can we do? And then using all that material afterwards to construct scenes with it.
That sounds like it would be fun. That sounds like a very like Halloween. That sounds like when I go into a Halloween store, I see all those props. I love that. You got to just play around with the best of the stuff.
Yeah, yeah, basically.
Well, I wanted to end it off. I know we're going up to the end of the time here, but I did want to ask you about the third act. We get this glimpse of the eerie suburbia reality, which is, of course, a very different contrast to what we've seen so far in the film with more the dark forest and the motels and the bar scenes in the first two acts. And so I thought it was interesting because I got that same creepy crawling under your skin vibe in suburbia reality that I did for the rest of the film. So when you were creating that and shooting those scenes in suburbia, how did you ensure that audiences still had that like creepy crawly in such a different setting than what we'd seen in the rest of the film?
I felt like that's equally easy to make because I always find domestic like spaces very unsettling and creepy anyway. Maybe that's just me though. So for me, I think just maybe my natural approach to them is like ooh, like, whoa, look like this. They have like two cars and possibly a dog. I'm like, this is fucked up. There's something wrong here. Like, so that's my natural response. That's like the creepiest place actually for me was whatever the forest on the road. You're in these spaces that are liminal spaces. Anything can happen in the forest or when you're by yourself in hotel rooms and on the road, people go missing. But like, really, what's the scariest place in the world for me? Domestic bliss, suburbia. That's terrifying. Um, so I think for me, it was obvious. So it wasn't like it would be any other way. So I think it just kind of came out that way. I mean, I think the actors as well. Jeff and Chloe are so good in the third act. Jeff really plays a lovely, lovely Morgan. So a great, amazing Morgan, and that helps a lot.
Absolutely.
I think because we actually don't see much of the house.
Yeah,
We get one exterior shot, and then I mean things happen in the house, but obviously it's not we're not dealing with wide shots of this space really. We're still it becomes quite a psychological space. Maybe that helps as well because we're really into what's going on between them, right, in their relationship.
absolutely. I agree. Well,
Well, thank you so much for your time and
Oh,
congratulations on everything again.
thank you so much. I appreciate it.
thank you.